Hey everybody, this is On coming to you with this month's Connecting Codes video. And wow, we are looking at out with the old, in with the new. And we are looking at getting things cleaned up in our world. So I think that's going to be a good month. Never comes without a little bit of turbulence in there, but hey, it happens. For those of you that don't know, I am the author of The Code Journey, and that is this book here, nice big book. I just released the 2026 version on August 19th. Boy, I'm all mixed up in months and days and everything right now. On August 19th, it's on my website. If you go over to compassioncodes.com, click on that books tab, you'll see The Code Journey. It's got links to get you directly into the purchase pages there. And it's always exciting. Publishing time is always exciting. I've got a brand new website up right now, so that's exciting as well. Want to share with you a couple of events that I have coming up. I'll be headed over to Rutland, Vermont on September 13th, 12th and 13th. I'll be over there, and I think it's October 24th and 25th that I will be back there as well. And I have a workshop going on. I'm taking private session work over there. So if you're interested, you can certainly connect with me there. I also have a series of conscious living classes that are going on in Bethel, Maine through our adult education courses here. So that is also available, very affordable. I have an introductory kind of price going with those, just to see how it goes, to get some connection with the community here and things like that, get them a chance to know me. So that will be interesting. That's coming up starting early September. I think it's September 9th is the first course, and then runs on through into the first week of November with that. And then I'll probably have a couple of other live events going on throughout the fall here in September, October, November that you can catch up with me live at a couple of the fall shows, craft shows, things like that, where I'll have the book and I'll be able to sign and do that. So it's really cool. This book is not just about world events. It's also a personal growth tool. It's about working with foresight. And I have a lot of people that follow world events, which is why I do these videos. And there's a lot that connects with it. It's great to have that heads up. That's the way I look at it. This operating with foresight is very important. And what I do in my work, it blends over 50 different modalities, practices, belief systems, all of that. And I'm really taking a look at the energy patterns that are present. And that helps me understand, are we in for a lot of turbulence? Are we in for a lot of control, power battle stuff? Is it safe to be out protesting? Is it not safe to be out protesting? What's the situation? What's the read on things? And if we're going to do things, what do we need to be paying attention to? And I see I'm getting a lot of reflection on my screen there, so I apologize. I'm trying not to. Um, and so when we're doing these things, this really helps us in regards to world events, because when things are getting stirred up and kicked up in the world, then we want to be in a place that we can handle that. We want to shift our way of operating. We want to be wise, right? If there's storms coming in, you want to be prepared for the storms. And that's literal storms and proverbial storms. And that's part of what the energetic patterns share with us. So we're going to take a look at what the code patterns are, what the energetic patterns are coming up in September right now. And I kind of break this down by some of the monthly influences and then kind of break down some of the action pieces and the mindset pieces and spiritual pieces of it, and just kind of take a look and see what we might be in for in this upcoming month in world events, things that are going to probably come into the news with things, and where we can expect things to get hot, what's going to come to the forefront and be talked about basically in here. So starting off with the month's energies, we have a lot that is around purifying, cleaning things up. And I think we're already starting to see this. And by the way, I'm filming this on August 22nd. So it's a little bit before the month comes in, but that gives me time to get everything posted up and shared out. So we're already starting to see some of these influences, right? We see that happening around the DC area, around some other cities, but I think this is going to spread. Some of the things that are happening around that DC area, I think, is also going to spread to some other bigger cities. We could see it in places like New York, Los Angeles, California, San Francisco, Chicago, some of these bigger towns, these bigger cities that have really gotten rampant in crime. And I'm even seeing it. I live in Maine. It's not like we have tons of this stuff, or we didn't when I moved here a few years ago. But I mean, I'm even seeing a lot of weird stuff happening in Maine, coming through the news cycles. And we have sections. We have sections that are very crime based. And they weren't that way when I came here. So we're going to see a lot of emphasis put on this. What are we going to do to clean up our cities, our communities, our neighborhoods? And this is a great thing. We want to clean things up. We want things to where it's safe for our children to go outside and play. We want to be able to go take a walk and not worry about, is somebody going to mug me? Is somebody going to beat me up or any of that? Fortunately, I live in a much more rural town and we don't have a lot of that, but I still see a lot of stuff going on in my tiny little town. It's kind of tourist destination focused town, and I'm seeing more and more stuff come through here. And just because you live in an affluent area, you're not free of these things. I mean, granted, money tries to keep a lot of these things out of the communities, but likewise, like I can say around the area that I am, you've got some very uh, elite people around. You've got some very wealthy people around. You also have people that are barely making it, if at all, and really struggling. But, when you bring in some of these elite crowds, which is part of what my area does, you're also bringing in designer drugs, you're bringing in a lot of other things, and then that cascades to crime and that cascades to other things. So I think we're going to see more and more of this stuff getting cleared up. And we also have a lot of deception happening around that. So this purge, what it's really about, a lot of people get scared in this time, like, oh my gosh, there's military active, or there's forces on the street, or the police are out a lot, or we're being stopped for every little thing, or things like that. But this is really a preparation for new beginnings that are coming in. And what this new beginnings are, what this cleaning up is about, is to prepare to bring back integrity, to give us a fresh start on things, to open things up to where it is good. It's good to say, this is my home. It's good to say, this is my community. And we can really say that and mean it. And that has to be brought back in order for there to be safety, in order for people to thrive and to flourish and to be healthy and all of those things. That integrity piece has to be there. So we want to look at this, not this destruction, not all these horrible things happening so much as we're getting an opportunity for a new beginning, right? It's kind of like when you're moving and you throw out the stuff that, you don't need to take with you, and you are going in and you're cleaning and you're preparing the house for somebody new to come in, and you're preparing the house that you're moving into, and you're going to get a fresh new start, right? So it's a very similar component that is happening there. We have to be able to clean stuff up. And you don't just take all of the trash and the garbage and everything with you into the new space or the new environment. You have to clean it up. And that's the path that we're going to be in a lot in September. A lot of accountability where truth and integrity are being sabotaged. That's going to come up, and that's going to bring a lot of exposure to corruption that's happening. So again, we've seen it for several months, but it's kind of a big part of this theme this year is this exposure of lies, exposing where people have been lying to us. And we need to listen to that, and we need to hear it, and we need to take it in, because we can't just turn our eyes and say, well, I don't want to hear that these people lied to me or those people lied to me. And you can't be partisan in this. This is something that we need to look at it and say, are they a liar or are they not a liar? I don't care what party they're involved in. If they're manipulating things, if they're distorting everything, I want the truth to come out. And I really want people to have that because when we have truth, we have choice. When we have choice, we can make wise decisions. They all interact with each other. And when we make wise decisions, we can work more in truth and integrity. So all of these things. But again, those people who don't reside in those spaces, those people who work against that, they're going to try to sabotage it. They're going to try to sabotage anybody in here. And again, we have all these distortions and so many people have gotten stirred up about things recently. And I keep bringing people back. Look, there are so many optics and there are so many subtleties in things. And if you're not catching the subtleties, you're going to miss things and it's going to take you off on tangents and you're going to think that things are something different than what they are. And they're going to get very deceptive to you. And we've got a lot of illusions and things are not necessarily the way they appear that they are. So you have to sort through some of these things. Don't just even if you've got a favorite person, I mean, I even have those people I like to listen to, I like to catch news from, things like that. But I never am 100% in on everything that they say. And I encourage that. Everything, people slip up sometimes or they get their own perception in things or whatever it is. So we have to always be looking at this objective point. I don't care what party somebody is. If they're a criminal, I want them held accountable. And accountability is part of compassion because that is compassion for all the people who are being hurt by their crimes. That is compassion for them as an individual and not wanting them to continue down that path, not to control them, but because I want them to have something that is true success and true happiness and true joy and not these false versions, not these versions that reside in fear and other things. Okay. Lazy, jealous people. We're going to see those people who are jealous. The jealousy coming out is based from those people who are lazy and they're jealous of those people who are creating successes right now. So when we have that component coming up, what does that activate? This is really going to activate your narcissist and your psychopaths. Yay! I'm sure everybody's thrilled to hear that, right? They're going to be activated because these people are really about they've got to have a lot of attention. So if anybody gets any of the attention, no matter what they've done, right? We've got Trump, he's brought peace to 6, 7 different wars, whatever it's been now. I've lost count on them, but a lot that is happening there. And he's starting to get attention. He's got a lot of world leaders saying, yeah, he should get the Nobel Peace Prize or things like that. And those people who are in the narcissistic and the psychopathic patterns, they just can't tolerate this. So they're having to, come out with whatever they're having to come out with to bring attention back onto themselves. And then the irony is when they get the attention, they don't necessarily want the attention. They try to divert it back to other people for different things. So it's really, again, this weird twisting of everything that's going on. But those are the people that are going to get activated. And they're going to get activated because they don't like other people getting attention. So a lot of these people that run in the corrupt circles, a lot of these criminal-based people, whether you're talking white-collar criminals or otherwise, they have a strong need for attention. So they're going to be doing things to get attention by any means that they can in there. A lot of networks, what is interesting, we're going to again see more layers of networks and connections happening. But beyond that, I think we're going to see some of these networks starting to collapse during September, which is a great thing because we've been getting all this exposure about who the networks are and who's involved in them and all of that. But I think we're actually going to collapse them. And why are they going to collapse? Because they don't truly understand how things work. They rely on all their partnerships to take care of them. Well, guess what? When the funding dries up to those different organizations and groups, then the partnerships don't mean anything. They can't carry you through if there's no funding because it's all about this funding that is going on. So, if one place gets funding, then they share it with these other ones, those share it with these other ones, and they keep sending the money around to each other is basically what they do. That's part of how they keep that network alive. And they just keep kind of funneling and channeling these monies around in there. But when the monies get cut out, that's when you really see that there's not really a true partnership. And the people that are left there don't really know what they're doing. And we see the same thing happening like in our various, particularly mainstream media channels, is that when they're cut off from having some of the inside information, or you remove the corrupt people who are leaking stuff that they shouldn't be leaking, or who are feeding narratives and not the truth about things of what's really happening and stirring up all of this trouble. Well, when you cut those people out of the picture, all of a sudden you've just got media making stuff up because they don't really know what they're doing. They don't really know what's happening or what's going on or how to handle things in there. So this collapse of networks, I think, is coming. There's going to be attempts to tear down value and worth. That's going to come in a lot of different ways. So a lot of slandering, again, a lot of things coming out like, well, okay, so you did these 25 things that nobody else has been able to do, but you know what? This one tiny little thing, like you didn't tip your waiter enough, or some stupid thing like that, they will use to start slandering people. And they're going to have to get almost that petty because they don't have a lot to work with anymore. But this is all about demeaning people. This is all about shredding their sense of worth and value and their confidence and things like that. So we have to be really kind of careful with some of that, some of the slandering that is going around, some of these stories like, oh, so and so hates this, they're not working together anymore. These teams are all breaking up. And, we'll see some false stories, I'm sure, around that, kind of like we did not that long ago, like, oh, Cash and Patel and Dan Bongino hate Pam Bondi, and and this is all about this trying to create this division, trying to stir this stuff up and to create the slandering. Oh, so and so's talking bad, and as you find out and you go down the channels, what happens? Well, a lot of those were lies. That wasn't happening. None of those things were being said. We've seen false notices put out. We see all kinds of things. So just take things with a grain of salt. You can't just take anything at face value, and the AI is getting stronger and stronger and stronger all the time. So it's the things are more deceptive. The fakes are more deceptive out there. So just really stay alert and pay a little more attention to things. Be careful of the distractions that are coming up. Again, these narcissists, these criminals, and these people like this, they don't care if they get negative attention because they're still getting attention. And that's their main focus is attention, whether it's negative or not, they don't care. And then what they'll do is deflect it and go, well, I wouldn't be this way if, right? Well, I wouldn't be living out of the country if. You see that there's several celebrities doing that. Well, I wouldn't have had to leave the country if. It's like, no, you chose to leave the country. That's your choice. And, stop blaming everybody else for that choice. Nobody made you leave the country. Nobody forced you, you know. It's not like you were living a miserable life in your 5 different $10 million mansions, okay? I'm sorry, don't ask me to have a bleeding heart for you in these. I do care. I do care that they're so wrapped up in lies and manipulation, and that they've done things that have probably got them so afraid that they're having to make those statements. I do have compassion for that because that is truly somebody who's in a victim position. We don't see them that way, but they are, that they're in such a dark web of corruption that they're actually doing the things that they're doing probably because they're scared, probably because they're on drugs or whatever else. They're so controlled. They're so controlled, these people. That they feel that that's what they have to do for survival in there. Okay. we need to care about what we're doing and what is happening. And we are not caring when we're allowing this rampant crime. So this is a big focus. This goes hand in hand with this purging and this clearing up. We have to care. We have to care about people. We have to care about these things. And these people say, well, you're getting rid of all the homeless. You're getting rid of all this. Well, it's not exactly the way the news is being presented. Actually, these people who have been homeless in some of these areas, let's take DC, for example, and that had all of this crime, a lot of them have psychosis. A lot of them have mental illness. A lot of them have physical challenges. A lot of them cannot take care of themselves. A lot of them have drug issues. They have all kinds of things going on. And it may or may not be their fault in one way or another. That's not for us to judge. However, it is very uncaring to leave them on the streets suffering, urinating themselves, living in filth. That is uncaring. Taking them off of the streets and putting them someplace where they can get the help, where they can be clean, where they can maybe get off of their addictions, where they can sleep at night, where they're not subjected to hot and freezing cold temperatures, depending on the time of year. That is caring. That is compassion. And it's caring about all the people that live around there. It's caring about the children and their safety. It's caring about the neighborhoods, about the people, about the residents. That's caring. So again, we've gotten a lot of things distorted where it's like, oh, you're so cruel if you take these people off the streets. No, you're not cruel. If you take them off the streets and get them help and get them food and get them shelter, that's caring. That's caring about these people. So when we care, we gain. When we don't care, we experience losses. And that's what we've seen in our world. The places where they didn't care, where they let this stuff go rampant, they had a lot of losses, right? Through crime, through theft, through brutality, through violence, through all these things. The places that did care, that started holding people accountable, that started enforcing the laws, things like that, that started cleaning their cities up, okay, they're getting gains. They're getting benefits now. And any company, look at all the companies that are moving out of California, right? They're saying, you're not taking care of us. We're spending all the money. We're paying all these taxes. We're providing jobs. We're doing this. We're doing that. And you repay us by letting criminals go and having our stores vandalized and putting a huge burden and cost on us to where we can't even afford to be in business. What's happening? They're all moving out of there. They're pulling their businesses out of there because they're like, we're not staying here. It makes no sense under any context. So this is a big thing. Now, from the 1st through the 22nd, there's a big push to return to values during this time. We're wanting the happiness, the true happiness, not the illusion of it. So this is going to be a big focus. Coming back to values. And again, what is that about? Safe communities, good families, the right to, go to church or whatever your belief system is, the ability to have a job, to have a home, basic values. And this return to values, so we're going to see a lot of things being initiated around that. So that can include removal of taxes, that can include opportunities for people, that can include all kinds of different things involved in that. But this more value-driven life, how do we make it affordable for people? How do we get people to be able to own their own home? How do we make it to where they can get into a new car? And I know of some people that are really anxious to have some of these things in their life. But it's all a process too. So it's like, I keep telling them, just hang on, because I know it's not happening as fast as some people want, but some of these things, they will be coming through. And we need to wait because as the manufacturing comes in, as these factories go up, as the people are employed there, as a variety of things happens, we're going to see the prices coming down. we're going to see more incentives. There's going to be more happening where they're going to be wanting people's business and they're going to do a lot to get that business. And so we're going to see a lot of shifts happening, particularly like in car industries. And some of these things, they have to crash out. They have to hit bad points before they can take that turnaround, be purged, and come back in a more favorable direction. And that purging point can be uncomfortable. That crashing down point, that getting to some of these extremes is uncomfortable, but we're starting to hit those turning points now. So we've got to hang in there with this. A big thing is about releasing materialism, addictions, temptations, and addictive patterns. We've got to let go of some of our attachments to things. You can't make some of the transformations and get back to values if you're living in these attachments, right? If you're stuck in this, I've got to have better than everybody else, or I've got to have, these things. So, in this process, a big part of this, when we release these things, when we release our attachments and our addictive patterns and the materialism, we can start to reclaim our life and we become free from being hostage in our own homes, our communities, and again, making places safe, because what most people don't realize is they've actually been put in that position of basically being a hostage in their own community. And when I say that, it's like if you're in a crime-ridden community, okay, you don't feel safe going outside. So you're like a hostage in your own home because you don't feel safe going out. You don't feel like you can go out without being mugged or hurt or something happening to your kids or your family or whatever, or your car being jacked or whatever it is. So, you know, you're a hostage in your own home. In that sense, you're a hostage in your own community. Um, we have to free ourselves from these things. So we need to reclaim the sense of life. We need to reclaim being able to have ball games in our communities and not have to worry about what's happening. I mean, I think I'm really one of the last generations out there that could play without adult supervision around, that we didn't have these fears of somebody kidnapping us walking 2 blocks from a park to our home, things like that. And we need to return to that. We need to reclaim that type of life. Again, because our kids need to be able to go outside. Our kids need to be able to be safe. They need to have some of this accountability, because if we can't get back to some of that, then these kids aren't going to be able to take care of themselves. They're not going to make it. And I've heard that expressed from some of them. We need to choose a path of God or divine source. And I know for some people that can be hard, but I know a lot of people are already moving in that direction. And why is that? I mean, if you're not comfortable with the term God, I am, and but not everybody is. I get that. Maybe it's divine source for you, whatever the case is. And what this is really about is a value-driven life. Okay. This is really about getting our focus back on what's good. And again, not living in all of this drug-based lifestyle, not living in all of this uncaring lifestyle of things. We still need to be very careful, of course, with liars and criminals, and there's still going to be a lot of uncertainty present. It's not like you snap your fingers and, well, poof, it's all gone. We're going to have to be careful for a while, because you can't just immediately make it all go away and stop. It's a process and it takes time. But so we still need to be alert. And these that are not caught yet, these that are still out there, the people that are still doing things, they're going to try to create grief and danger and fear and things like that. So some of these are paid people. Some of these things are orchestrated things by different groups. And we have to make sure that we're not just caught up in all of that. We have to stay alert and use some caution in there. But yeah, where these people are still present, we're going to have to. So this is going to go hand in hand with cleaning up the communities in there. There's going to be that cleaning up process, but that doesn't, again, mean you let all your guards down. You still have to watch. and be careful. Responsibility brings peace, and peace brings accomplishment. So this is a big thing. When we go into the space of being responsible, holding people accountable for the things that they're doing, that sends a very strong message to say, look, if you're going to commit a crime in our country or our city or our town or whatever it is, you're going to be held accountable. There's no more free rides with things. And when we do that, that gives people peace, right? Because they know if something happens, that person isn't just going to stay out on the streets doing more and more and more of it. They're going to be held accountable. They're going to be taken off the streets. They're going to be taken away from people. And in that peace, when we feel a sense of peace, we can actually start to thrive. We can go back to focusing on flourishing instead of just focusing on getting through the day and protecting ourselves constantly. This is the same way with businesses. You know, if a business doesn't have to worry about who's breaking into their business overnight, that gives them peace. When they have that peace, then they can grow and develop their business. And that, again, allows everybody to flourish. So it's a really good thing when we come into this responsibility. It doesn't mean that we're all going into a Puritan lifestyle. It doesn't mean that there can't be fun or things like that in life, but it just means we're taking care of what needs to be done ultimately. Criminals and liars are going to be accusing the innocent to stop their own exposure. So here's where I was saying that Roy twist, right? Because they want all the attention, but then they're going to say, but I don't want all of this exposure of my crimes. So let's put the attention back on other people. And how they're going to do that is they're going to keep the attention on themselves, but they're going to be blaming other people, pointing fingers at other people. So it's kind of like, oh, well, they're doing this, they're doing that. So they're getting all of this attention and they're deflecting the attention away from their crimes at the same time. So again, this sort of exposure, they're trying to stop their exposure. And what they're looking for is they're hoping that the people that they're accusing of things will then come out and they'll react and they'll get very reactive and combative and get into these battles with them. And that is not something that we want to do because that's going to end up working against us. What we want to do is step back and go, okay, what are the facts and how do I take action on things with the facts to bring this accountability, to bring the responsibility in. That's the piece and that's the direction that we want to go with things is doing that. And if we react, what that's going to do is that's going to, in the criminal or corrupt's eyes, justify bringing more violence out. So if we're not reacting, we're not giving them an excuse to do some of the things they want to do. So we're really taking the excuse, we're really taking the channel away from them for doing things. So, yeah, if we can take action and again, just root into the facts, find the ethical paths to resolving things and finding the legal paths to resolve things. That's going to be the big key. From there, as we move on in the month, from the 23rd on, yes, I've got all my notes here. A big plot that's going to be going on is the corruption's going to then turn, if they're seeing they're not getting the reactions they want and things like that, and the other pieces aren't working to get what they want, they're going to try to pit people against each other. So they're going to try to turn friends against each other. And this is going to come out through false news about disagreements that are going on, an increase in bullying, abuse, putting out a lot of disorder, confusion, chaos, things like that. So again, we'll probably see a lot of false stories, a lot of things like, oh, this person hates this person now. And none of it's true. They're just seeing if they could drive a wedge and start getting those people to argue. It's not that they're already arguing or there's any disagreements, but they're figuring, hey, if we put it out in the news, maybe they will. And if we can do that, then we create all this tension between this team. And if that team has all this tension in it, then they can't do the work that they're trying to do. So that's kind of the mindset behind it. And there, so we've got to be very careful about that. Don't just jump in there and believe it and start taking sides on people. I would say almost first assume that it's a false story. I would almost assume that first. and then just watch and observe. And again, if it's not our battle, we've got to let other people resolve things. And we got to realize again, there could be a reason. Is this being dropped out there to get people to research something, to look at something, to pay attention to something? Is it to get attention flowing in a certain direction? That's possible. We're also going to see in those cities that are still running under very corrupt people, we're going to see the victimizing of those people who are not compliant, and those who are standing up to the corruption. So, in this process, what's going to happen is we're going to see an exposure of the bullying and the abuse that is in things. And we're going to be able to find out, is that bullying or that abuse coming from just an individual, or is that a network? Is that like an organization of people that it's coming from? So here again, this kind of tells us, okay, is this person really just, went off on their own and snapped one day? Or are they being paid? Are they connected to the FBI, the CIA? Are they being paid by one of the Soros groups or something like that? So this is going to start to show us, what's what in there. And we're also going to see kind of probably a change out in the corrupt players, kind of like, okay, this person isn't getting the responses we want. They're not able to make the headway, so we're going to change them out and put a different corrupt player into place. But on the other hand, that could be a positive thing too, where we could see a change out going on, where it ends up pulling some of the people out. But the thing is, when they're doing this, when they change one corrupt player out for another corrupt player, if they choose, it's like you're changing one criminal out for another criminal, basically, and things. When you do this, they always put in somebody more extreme, and the more extreme the person is that they put in, the more they wake everybody up, and the more people will realize, oh my goodness, these things are really happening, and then it goes too far. They always go too far in things. We're going to find out during this time, and a lot of the people that are in positions of power are going to find out who their friends are, who the betrayers are in things. We're going to find out who is actually for the people, who isn't for the people. We're going to find out, who's on our side, who's working for the things that are values and principles and making communities safe and all of those things. We're also going to see a lot of accidents and death. Now, this has been ongoing for a while now too, and it's going to continue, this accident and death energy. But I think in particular, we're going to see stuff coming up around construction zones and adventure activities. And I think some of these things are set up to scare people, kind of like, this is your warning, don't speak up, don't say anything, don't do anything. There's going to be these warnings and these, fear, and it's going to be set up to do that way, but it can still be, it can go wrong. It can go wrong and end up in accidents and deaths instead of just being sort of a scare thing that happens. We're probably going to see a lot of hit jobs during this month. And when I say that, that's things that are made to look like accidents that aren't. When I think of things like adventure activities being centered around that, we have a lot more things that are happening in wooded areas. It's kind of scary, really. Things happening to people on trails, but it also makes me think of a lot of these reality TV stars. I know there's been a lot, it seems like a lot of times these influencers and reality TV stars and people along those lines who do these adventure activities, and they're great. If you can do them, I love to, I used to love to do them. I'm not physically able to do them anymore, but I used to love to. And so we will see more accidents probably happening in that circle of people, would be my guess. They may be ready to come forward with something. They may be needing to clear their head, feeling trapped in things, trying to make some decisions, and then there's attempts to scare them to stay quiet, and then things go wrong. So when I think of that, that means to me like parachuting accidents, rafting accidents, rock climbing accidents, maybe, I don't know if I'd say mountain biking. I don't know if I'd go that far. Skiing accidents, there's all kinds of things all kinds of things that fall into that category, surfing accidents, kayaking accidents. So I think we have a lot more coming down the pike with that. And then progression and advancement, that is going to happen where karma is being cleared, where the virtues, where the values are being re-implemented back in, and where there is a focus on having a favorable future and creating that. And I think those are great places. We could see some very strong, rapid advancements there. So I would expect some policies to be implemented. We're already starting to see some of the things where there's movements to remove property taxes, for example. I think that that is going to be more of the type of thing that we will be seeing in there. Um, so that's clearing a lot of karma because a lot of the taxes that have been implemented on us have created a lot of bad karma, and it's created a lot of debt for people. It's created a lot of hardship for people in there, and so I think there's that aspect. And I think also we're going to see this retaliation from the corruption because you can't make rapid, big advancements and not have some retaliation from those who are losing power. It's kind of like, you can come in and clean things up, but those people who are being moved out because they're doing illegal things or criminal activities are going to retaliate. They're not just going to go quietly, and they don't like that they're losing power. And so we are going to see some backlash come up. And we just have to ride our way through it. My philosophy on that is always lean harder into God, our divine source, and keep moving forward. That's usually what's going to see us through. From the 1st through the 21st, we're getting into what actions, the types of actions we're going to see. So we're going to get a lot more actions being moved towards creating freedom for people. And freedom is desired. It comes up. It's something that we receive when we release the materialism and the addictions. We're going to see new things being tried. So, I mean, granted, nothing's 100% new, right? But we may see some things implemented a little bit differently or done a little bit differently than what they've been done in the past. And I think that's going to be a really favorable thing because we really do. I mean, let's face it, trying the same old things over and over again doesn't work. You have to try some new things, or at least some new twists in things or variations of things to do it. So I think we're going to see new things being tried and tested out. And that's going to be interesting to see what comes up. We're also going to see a lot of removing the support to lies, deception, manipulation, and returning to integrity. So again, I think we'll see that in the news cycles. We'll probably see more security clearances being revoked. I know there's probably people out there that are getting upset over those security clearances, but those security clearances aren't just about an individual. Those security clearances are being used by all kinds of corrupt organizations out there. And so this is part of weeding down to find out who the real true leakers are. This is part of weeding out people along the way. And so when these are revoked, and really when somebody has left office, when they're not in their position anymore, when they've retired, things like that, they shouldn't be maintaining these security clearances. They shouldn't still have access to all of these things. And so some of this, again, it's just like cleaning up house is basically what it's doing. It's just, it's like cleaning up your junk mail, your inbox. It's a very similar thing that's happening there. And again, this is showing us, okay, if we've weeded all of these people out, and if something still leaks out, where's that coming from? So it helps to hone in more and more and more and pinpoint the actual sources of things. And that is a great thing in there. From the 22nd on, we can't take anything for granted. We've got to act safely during this time, and we want to break through the aspects of danger. So I think that's definitely possible in here. And this not taking anything for granted is so critical. I mean, anything can happen at any time, and you can't become complacent, especially when you're doing this purging process and you're purifying things and you're making these transitions. You can't, you can't take things for granted. Somebody who might be your friend one day might not be your friend the next day, and so on. So we want to keep breaking through these pieces of danger, and holding on and seeing things all the way through. we can't undo our past, but we can learn from it. And this is why it's so important that just because we don't like something, we shouldn't be erasing it. Um, even sometimes when things are not completely the truth, it's like, well, that needs to sometimes stay up just so people can realize, look, this is how the deception happened. Look, this is the stories that we're told, and here's the facts. So there's a variety of things in there. And again, we have all these different perspectives. What might be the fact from one perspective might not be the fact from another perspective. So there's always sometimes more than one truth out there. But if we don't keep these different pieces from our past alive, then we can't learn from them. And that's actually part of the corruption's techniques. If they wipe that stuff out, you'll forget about it. You won't learn from it. You'll be back at square one. You'll be in a more helpless position with things, and you're not as able to defend or take care of yourself when things are happening if you don't have that knowledge. So that's part of this movement to delete so much knowledge out there when we talk about the corruption and removal of those in personal gain and deception. So here again, I think we're going to see more cleaning up, whether that's the House, the Senate, whatever, of people who have been in there for personal gain. And if you start cutting it off and say, okay, you can't trade, your family cannot trade, while you're in this position, then that's going to clean up a lot of things because people won't be in those positions if they're not making that kind of money. It's again bringing it back to the values and the virtues and bringing it back to a position of service as opposed to a way to get rich in things. And we're going to see the deception in there again being exposed of how people have been getting all of this personal gain from the corruption and from their positions in there. Now, thoughts, where the mindset is going. And just the first couple of days of the month of September, we're going to see things are going to be very confusing. So again, just kind of sit back and observe a little bit more because there's going to be a lot of misunderstandings, a lot of miscommunications going on. There's a lot of refocusing of priorities going on. So in some ways, there might not be a lot being shared or communicated. Some things may not be communicated well during that time. So there may be corrections that will have to come out on them. Things may actually really be appearing to fall apart, but they're not really falling apart. They're actually coming together. That's kind of like saying, well, you knocked that wall down in the house that you're remodeling, so everything in the house is falling apart. Well, no, we just may be remodeling the room, and that wall needed to come down to do what we needed to do to make the house maybe stronger or, better for living in or things like that. And that happens a lot. So don't let some of the optics distract you. Sit back and just chill for a couple of days at the beginning. Don't let your mind go all crazy, wandering all over the place. Now, from the 3rd through the 18th, there's a lot of needing to change habits. We need to be focusing on that and getting out of poor mindsets. And we're going to see more promises fulfilled. So those of you that like to follow things that are happening or Trump's doing or the administration and going back and saying, well, what did they promise? You might be interested in going back and pulling some of that stuff up because this is a time where things definitely could get fulfilled. We might see some of those promises getting fulfilled, and you might want to look and say, well, what hasn't been fulfilled yet? And then take a look because I think some more of those promises are going to be fulfilled and things. Practical paths that are done creatively, and that's how these things are going to get fulfilled. So it's taking very stable, very practical, very logical, just good, basic, sound steps along the way, and maybe implementing a little creativity into making those works. So that may bring peace between Ukraine and Russia. It's a possibility. I don't know 100% because this isn't necessarily about predictions, but that is the type of thing that we could see because that would meet that promise fulfilled and doing things in this practical and their sort of creative way to make it work. Big shifts in thinking happening here. So we're going to have a big refocusing going on, a big shift in the mindset. So it's going to we're going to see people starting to change the way they're thinking. Um, they may take a different course. The people that are in charge may take different courses with things as they shift their mind. And we're also going to see how corruption provokes people to attack each other, how the news, how things are getting twisted and distorted to appear opposite of what they are in there. Um, we've seen this so much with the news, and we didn't even know what was happening because most people didn't actually really pay attention, or we didn't have access to some of the clips and things that we have now with things. But these lies and stuff are used to deliberately get people to react, to deliberately put them in fear. Now, we've seen this, for example, with weather reports, right? And the weather reports, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen these clips, right? They're trying to convince you there's some big storm going. Well, they really have these big, giant movie set fans going, trying to make you think there's these really gale-sized winds going on. And if you look in the background, here's these people going across in shorts, just walking like it's a bright sunny day, because that's what really is. But a lot of times we don't catch those little background subtleties and things in there. So we're going to realize that a lot of stuff that's presented to us is basically a movie set or basically is created and isn't what we think it is or what it's being presented to us as. And these are all mind games. This is a mind game. When you create a movie set and call it news, it's not news. It's a movie set and it's a mind game to mess with people, to be able to implement narratives, to be able to implement agendas, things like that. And so these things are designed to scare people, create strife, create upheaval. And unfortunately, when people go into fear, that's when we see the accidents and the deaths. So that accident and death energy becomes magnified during that time. So this provocation actually can turn quite deadly. And this is the type of energy that I say, yeah, this isn't a good time to be in protest. This isn't a good time to be doing some of these things. You really got to be more careful. This is, not a great high adventure time. This is not a time for high adventure activities like skydiving or things like that. Um, it's just not. It's just not in here. So we've got to be a little safer. And again, we have to step back, pull our reaction out of something and say, what's the facts? Let me research something. Let me look further into it. Because we don't want to see these things happening. We don't, want to go down these paths. And this has been used about so many things. And I think weather is a big thing that it's been used for. And so we have to be careful. If there's a fear tactic being used, it's probably something we need to research more because it really may not be anything to be afraid of. We see this when they start to report on diseases or things like we're seeing these big things come up about, tick related things, a new tick that's been released up here in the Northeast that comes from China. And so they're trying to put all this fear in people. And it's kind of like, you know what? People have tick issues all the time in the Northeast. This is nothing new. And again, I always tell people, they blow it out of proportion like it's going to be some big pandemic thing. And in reality, what it ends up being is like 5 people, out of millions of people. So it's really not what they make it out to be. We have to be very careful of that. That's part of the mind games, is blowing things out of proportion. Now, in that last part of the month, the mindset aspect, the 19th through the end of the month, lots of closure, lots of endings, a lot of completing things, a lot of closing things out. And in some ways, that's going to give us peace of mind in there. Choices are going to be based on creating a stable and favorable future. So when we look at that, I think this is a good thing because this is going to allow us to bring some things to completion in here. And it's kind of like, okay, the decisions are going to get made. So we can expect probably some pretty big decisions coming down the line in that last part of the month. That's going to move towards a favorable direction, a lot of strong progression and advancement because of those decisions, and a lot of benefits coming down the line for people. And again, the decisions are going to be made. That doesn't mean that they're immediately implemented that second. It's going to take time for it to go through the system and get to you, right? It's like just because somebody approves a check to go out to everybody and everybody's going to get some kind of, check in the mail doesn't mean that it's going to happen the day that that approval goes through. It takes time for it to go through the system and to have them issued out and for people to actually receive it. So we have to be patient for it to actually hit into action from the time it's decided. Right now, we're in that deciding phase. A lot of false prophets and gurus are going to lose standing during this time. And they may even enter a space of sort of insanity or mental issues coming up as people start to see through them. So, a lot of cults, a lot of brainwashing being exposed. And that's not just connected to the false prophets and the gurus. And, but then again, even mainstream media, if they're brainwashing you, they're working like a cult in there. So you have to consider that. But I think we are going to see more exposure coming. We've had a lot of that kind of trickling through. It's been kept a little more quiet, but it's definitely been there. I've seen it coming through. And these are the people that just, again, when we combine this with some of the death energy and things that are present, that's where we see these cult suicides. That's where we see these different things. But I think we're really going to see some of them kind of flip out. And again, sit back and watch. Is it your thing to deal with? Not really. Is it good to be aware of? Yeah, it's probably good to be aware of it. So I think literally this madness is can come through and it's going to create people to kind of go off the deep end with some things. So we're going to see some of those extremists in spiritual systems and beliefs coming out in there. And then finally, our soul energy. And I always love covering this because, our soul energy is so important. Where we're keeping it has a big influence on the direction things go. So, with the soul energy going on, really, there's a fear and an urgency that's being used to get people to react without thinking. And we cannot buy into this. We need to take the time to think about things. Nothing is as urgent. It's so rare that anything is as urgent as somebody is making it out to be. I mean, you could always take a couple of hours to start to research things, to look at things a little more carefully. Only the corruption needs to use this fear and urgency. Only those people who are not working in your best interest are going to be using this fear and urgency to get you to react. Those people who care about what's going on for you, they want you to think about things. They want you to understand things. They want you to look things up. They want you to know what's happening. They want you to make a wise choice. So there's a very big difference. So if fear and urgency is coming up, that's kind of a big red flag a lot of times to say, oh, I really do need to look closer at this. It's kind of like that, salesman in the mall at the kiosk. It's like, oh, well, this special's only available for the next 2 hours. Well, no, there's always another special, and there's always a way for them to give you that, right? It's like the car salesman. Oh, well, we only got this going on. But you know what? When you go back, it's always like, well, we can work this out and we can work that out. And you always end up, back in the same place getting just as good of a deal. Um, so yeah, don't work in that urgency. So, when we work in that fear and that urgency, we're shutting down our God connection. We're shutting down our soul connection. And when we do that, we put ourselves in a much more helpless position. We don't think clearly in those spaces, and we work much more off a human impulse instead of what's really connected to what's good to us. We also need to have some fun and be spontaneous with what's coming up in here. So I imagine there might be some really good memes coming out because those are the people that like to have fun. Those are the people that can just create things in the moment. And so I imagine there's going to be some good memes, especially with some of the other influences I've already talked about, where the corruption is going to lead itself down to not a great path for itself. And we just want to, again, take chill, get out and enjoy life, because the more we can get out and enjoy life a little bit, the more some of these things will subside because we're not bringing in that stress and tension or existing in it. The more we're opening our heart area and the more we can open that up, the more peace and ease we bring in. The more peace and ease we bring in, the more things get purged and cleared out. So it's a beautiful cycle when we're in that. Tyrants and And dictators are going to be exposed by those that are close to them. So we could definitely see a possible turnover in leaders happening during this time. And that can also be connected to taking back power. So when we look at these different things, countries, I think, are going to be looking at how self-sufficient they are. And again, this is a soul connection energy in many ways. Are we self-sufficient? Can we take care of ourselves? How reliant are we on other countries for resources, for basic needs? What can we do? And that's where some of that creativity comes in as well, too. And this is the soul's energy. The soul is not going to tolerate being restricted. That's not the nature of the soul energy in there. And as these dictators and these tyrants are going to get exposed, I mean, Trump already kind of started to do this with Zelensky, as he mentioned, oh, so if you constantly have wars going on, that means that nobody can have an election, which means you are permanently in office. Well, that's part of the play. That is part of the play. Keep a war going so that they have their corruption and their corrupt players in place, and then the people never have any say. They never have any freedom. And so a lot of times these wars, the people who are really involved really want them stopped. Okay. So what I could see happening in this that might tie into this energy is that there could be a ceasefire or a temporary stopping of the war. And in that temporary stopping of war, they will be forced into elections. And when the elections happen, that will create a turnover in players. In other words, that could take people like Zelensky or somebody like that out. A new player comes in that's actually for the people and is not part of the corruption network. And all of a sudden, you get peace between Ukraine and Russia, and the war stops. So I think there could be something like that going on. So these tyrants and these dictators, very easily, the exposure that's brought to them could lead to a turnover in there. And this is, again, part of that creativity I was talking about. Practical, stable way. Okay, here's the practical path. You know, if you can't have an election as long as there's a war going on, then you stop the war. If you have to, creatively, temporarily, so you have the election and boom, everything changes. It's pretty much as simple as that. Um, so I would look for that. And I think the UK and Australia are going to be places to watch because we're really seeing people saying, hey, we don't like this path. And I think there's going to be more of a drive to take their power back in things. And again, I think more and more these countries are realizing what do we need to do to be self-sufficient? And we'll see more and more of a thing there. So that's going to increase some of the soul energy. And that's what I've got for you this month for what's coming up in September. I think in some ways this is kind of cool. I think in some ways, yeah, there's going to be backlash and there's going to be some things to deal with, but I think there's a lot of positive things that are coming down the pike. And again, we might have some uncomfortable points along the way, but overall, it seems like we're headed in a better direction. It seems like we are going to be going down some positive paths that can definitely lead us towards a favorable future. And I think I think there's some good things that are going to come out and be implemented. So I'm very actually pretty positive on this geopolitical side of things. I'm actually pretty positive about what's coming down the pike. So take care, everybody. Don't forget to jump over to the website, compassioncodes.com, pick up your copy of the Code Journey. And again, this is a daily guidebook, both for spiritual growth and daily insights and staying on top of what's going on and what might amp up in the world. So if you like to follow all that, you can jump into here, and the 2026 book is out if you want to, get a jump on that and see what's coming down the line. And you can start to put your own connections together when you see what the energetic patterns are. And that helps you see what might be probable to be coming down the line if you like to kind of make connections. I will see you next month. Take care.